Battle-hardened alien freezes after hearing what humans survived in war. The training hall of Outpost Kresh was filled with the weight of old warriors. Armor clinked. Scars glistened under the harsh light. Veterans from across the coalition had gathered 4 shared histories, a mandatory program designed to build trust among species who once only met each other on battlefields. General Rock, a Vornak, stood at the front. His kind were born into war. His 4 tusks jutted proudly from his jaw, his armor bore marks of victories spanning decades. To the younger recruits, he was a living legend. He scanned the circle of soldiers and let out a low rumble. We share our scars today. Each story is a reminder that we have faced death and conquered it. The first to speak was a Tikari sniper who told of surviving acid storms that dissolved flesh in seconds. Gasps of respect echoed. A Yillik warrior recounted being buried under a rock slide during the siege of Tormek and clawing out 3 days later. Nods of admiration followed. Then, the circle's attention turned to the human sitting quietly at the back. The human recruit. Sergeant Elena Marlowe shifted under the stairs. She wasn't the largest soldier there. Her frame was wiry, her uniform plain. Compared to the towering, armored veterans, she looked fragile. General Rock pointed a claw at her. Human. Speak. What wars have you survived? Elena hesitated. She hadn't expected to be called so soon. But protocol was protocol. Well, she said softly, I suppose I'll start with the war my grandmother fought in. We call it World War II. A war on one world. World, a Tikari interrupted. Not a sector. Elena shook her head. No. Just one planet. Ours. Back then, we didn't have interstellar travel. But that didn't stop us. Over 70 million people died. The room fell into silence. General Rock frowned. 70 million? You mean civilian populations, surely. Civilians. Soldiers. Children. Everyone. Entire cities were flattened. A murmur spread through the room. To most species present, war was fought in controlled theaters, clan against clan, fleet against fleet. Civilian deaths were considered dishonorable, wasteful. But Elena's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. My grandmother lived through bombings. Entire neighborhoods turned to fire. People hid underground, hoping the walls wouldn't collapse on them. Sometimes they did. Rock's tusks lowered slightly. For the first time in decades, he felt unsettled. The fire that ate cities. Elena continued, her voice steady. There were weapons that created firestorms. Imagine a fire so large it pulled oxygen from the streets and suffocated entire districts. Families didn't burn, they simply couldn't breathe anymore. That happened to one of our cities. A scaled Yillik raised his crest in horror. And you endured this. You rebuilt. Yes. Elena's eyes were steady. The war ended, and the survivors kept going. They had to. General Rock shifted uneasily. He had led charges into artillery fire, but he had never imagined fire swallowing an entire city. The winter of starvation. Elena went on. In the east, millions starved. Entire armies froze in the snow. Civilians boiled leather boots for food. My grandfather said men would share a single slice of bread between 5 soldiers and call it a feast. One of the insectoid Tikari clattered their mandibles in disbelief. How can a species survive when food itself becomes scarce? Why continue a war at that cost? Elena's lips tightened. Because surrender wasn't an option. Both sides believed losing meant extinction. So they fought, no matter the price. Rock's second heart thudded hard against his chest. He had thought his people knew desperation. But this was survival turned into religion. The bomb. The human paused. The room leaned in. And then, she said quietly, We built a weapon that could end a city in a single flash. Every warrior froze. Even General Rock felt his spines bristle. A sun weapon, whispered a Quorn. Yes. We call it a nuclear bomb. It leveled 2 cities. Hundreds of thousands dead in seconds. Shadows of people burned into walls. Survivors walked the streets with skin falling off their bones. Elena swallowed. Her voice didn't crack. My people saw that horror. And instead of destroying ourselves completely, we stepped back. Barely. Silence choked the room. For the first time, battle-hardened killers who had seen fleets burn and armies crumble could find no words. Rock's question. General Rock finally spoke, his voice low. Human, how did your kind not break? 70 million dead. Cities turned to ash. Children starving in winter. A sun weapon. Why did your people not fall into despair? Elena looked at him. Her eyes were calm, but behind them was a weight no alien could measure. Because we didn't have a choice. We learned to survive horrors we created ourselves. When the war ended, we buried the dead, rebuilt the cities, and swore we'd keep going. That's what humans do. We endure. Her words landed heavier than any weapon. The freeze. General Rock, the Vornak legend, the warrior who had once faced down an armored juggernaut alone, felt his limbs lock. He couldn't move. Couldn't speak. He had faced plasma storms. He had survived 7 wars. He had eaten the flesh of fallen enemies when supplies ran dry. But nothing compared to what this fragile-looking human described with such quiet certainty. He realized, with a chill, that humanity had survived a war that would have shattered the Vornak people into extinction. And worse still, they had done it before leaving their own planet. Aftermath. The circle of warriors dispersed in silence that day. No one dared challenge the human afterward. For weeks, General Rock avoided Elena's gaze. Whenever he remembered her story, he felt a tightness in his chest. Not fear of her strength, but awe at her species' resilience. The Vornak had always believed they were unmatched survivors. But now Rock knew the truth. Humans were not merely survivors. They were something far more dangerous. They were endurers.